Greetings and welcome to my presentation on AI in the classroom, role disruption and learner agency. I'm Dr. James Hudson from Lindenwood University, and I'm so glad to be here at the 16th International Conference on E-Learning and Innovative Pedagogies. So let's get started. Now, what we're looking at is a new phase in education. So we might call it Education 3.0. We've heard that in the fourth industrial revolution or Industry 4.0. And what we're seeing is more and more disruption caused by AI, especially generative AI, released at the end of 2022. There is little doubt that when we rewrite the history books, that 2022 will be known as the year of generative AI. And we are seeing the expansion and the growth of that now, ever since especially the launch of ChatGPT in November of 2022. Coming back, educators and institutions scrambled to figure out what they should do about plagiarism policies, use of AI, etc. They were caught off guard at this. But we've been conducting research here at Lindenwood University for the past year on these new tools and are going to present the results of those in a new model for education here today. So what we need to know first off is the use of AI has always led to, in the earlier studies, especially in secondary education, improved learning outcomes. There have been many studies of how using AI for learner pathways, integrating it into learning management systems, and using it to track and flag students who may be struggling have all led to positive learning outcomes, retention, and persistence in the student body. We've already been using AI for over 2 decades in institutions, especially in trying to use them for student services, for learning management systems, to lead students through different content, student information systems, the SIS, ways in which we can quickly grapple with big data from everything relating to student transcripts, to the information associated with what they're submitting, to learning materials, etc. AI has already been helping us do this, but it wasn't generating new content until this last year, or was not widely available, that is. So students, once again, have used AI on their own unknowingly for years, ever since the launch of the iPhone in 2007, and of course the expansion of personal assistants that everyone has. What do you do when you wake up in the morning? You ask Siri what the weather is like, so if you need an umbrella, or what type of jacket you're going to bring with you. You ask, once again, what you have on your calendar for that day. You can schedule, events with friends and family, or look at what's happening at work, right? So these are virtual assistants we've been using. In addition, students were already using AI in word processing applications such as Microsoft Word, Grammarly, etc. These have been helping provide suggestions on snippets of sentences to improve syntax, mechanics, etc. But the use of and learning of AI in particular has largely been limited, and still is, to computer science departments. If you look for classes on artificial intelligence in higher education especially, most you're going to find are just going to be in computer science, right? Learning, once again, the scripting side, the machine learning side of these algorithmic cultures, or the ethical sides. You might find them in philosophy departments, or bioethics, for instance, that are required courses taken by nurses and doctors as part of their curriculum. But this can provide benefits to all areas, and we've conducted a study on how that can be applied. Now, once we entered the spring semester of 2023, we have examples such as the state schools in New York banning ChatGPT in their institutions because there's the fear we have seen of not knowing how to deal with it as of yet, and the widespread fear that students will use this specifically for plagiarism instead of learning how to communicate effectively in writing. But that is a complete fabrication, we have found out in our studies. As a matter of fact, students self-police and use this technology actually to improve their productivity, to improve their learning goals, and to make them, importantly, more creative along the way with the solutions they come up with. So what we're going to see with this is that prior to the fourth industrial revolution, we've had Google once again since 1998. So the ability to have the entire world at our hands and our fingertips has been there for over 2 decades. Students could learn how to make a nuclear reactor if they wanted online. They could learn about any civilization or gather all these facts. What they couldn't do is have, again, machine learning algorithms put those together for them and into a conversational mode or a written essay, for instance. So with that, we now have to seriously reckon with what we've been recommending as best practices for over 2 decades now. And that is, the instructor is not the content expert anymore who imparts information or this material. Instead, the students already have access to the material. The instructors are now going to act more like coaches in moving to the sidelines in active learning environments and showing them how to apply it, right? And helping them when they run into a wall, etc. So that's the major shift, right? The instructor is no longer the center of the classroom, right? So you find that students are engaging with one another. And we know that active learning, demonstrating something, doing something, and then teaching someone else how to do it vis-a-vis Bloom's revised taxonomy is, once again, the best way to learn. Now, in our various studies, which I'll go over briefly here, but you can see them and look them up after the presentation. I'm happy to share them if you reach out to me. We looked specifically in 2 major areas, in the English department here and in art and design. What we found was that across the board, there's not a danger of rampant cheating or plagiarism. And as a matter of fact, students were actually quite indifferent about these tools starting off. And that is regardless of age, demographic, race, ethnicity, level, etc. Most had heard of them, most were fine using them, but they were not incredibly excited necessarily. And they were also very surprised at their limitations. So for instance, in the spring of 2022, we started with a study, Dr. Dan Plate and myself, with the creative writing class, where Dr. Plate is going to have made his own algorithm using Python and launched in Spacie to see if we could improve creative writing students' creative output and what they could come up with in the solutions. What we found was in that study is that students were perfectly willing to admit that this tool, much like Microsoft Word, was good at helping them understanding grammar and syntax, but they refused to take their hands off the wheel on the creative side. They still wanted to be the driver, if you will, and even if AI was their co-pilot, and come to the final solutions and the product themselves. Following that up, once we had the launch of ChatGPT, which was much more powerful as the output that it was capable of managing, in the fall of 2022, we had another study on how do we use this in the English composition classroom effectively, ethically, and how do we adapt it to the curriculum. And again, what we found was not rampant plagiarism. Even when we told them to use the tool, they didn't want to because they found the limitations of what it could actually generate and how it could argue, and that it was good at deductive logic, but not inductive logic and reasoning. And so we find that there was not rampant cheating or plagiarism when given them the tools and told to use and teach them how to use it responsibly. What they were really interested in, which is very interesting, is the impact it would have on society. So they would continually try to get it to jailbreak, I guess is the term that we're going to be using now, to get it to go against social norms or its own protocols. Of course, it didn't. They couldn't get that done. Only recently has someone been able to successfully do that. I believe that's as of today when I'm recording this in February. But we did find that they did like using it. Now, we followed this up in several other studies, one in a traditional studio art drawing class, the other one in a digital art class. They were different demographics, different populations of students. One was online, one was on ground. And so we had a range of individuals from traditional college age of 18 all the way up to 65. Now, in those results as well, we found the same thing happening. And using generative art tools, students were perfectly happy using them for iterative, recursive, and the formative stages of the creative process. But they did not think they should be able to be used to submit a final work. They liked using them and thought they should be able to use them in the future, but should not be thought of as something like Photoshop because of the particular type of skill and training it takes to master those types of tools. And so they were rather ambivalent. They liked it. Everyone agreed that improved on their work. They had a better product at the end in a portfolio, but they did not want to adopt it wholesale and again take their hand off of the creative wheel. A great example of this type of recursive ideation, as you see here, is in a Fakemon. One student would put into, in this instance, Crayon, the AI art generator, a description of a water and fire type Pokemon to generate something new. So when it came out, as you can see on the left, on the right is the AI generated image. But you'll notice the style is not in that of the kind of Pokemon manga style that you would normally consider as part of that that idiom. And so what the student did was took inspiration from what was generated and then completely remade it and in a new style, selecting certain aspects of what they liked from the original, such as the number of fingers and toes, the stripes, all of these little touches that were added. But the creative inspiration came by way of AI, and we're going to see a lot of that moving forward. The creative tools that were outside of the reach of most individuals will, within the end of the year of 2023, allow millions more people to take advantage of their creativity. And we can leverage that for authentic assessment in higher education as well. So in summary, if we're going to future-proof students, we have to allow them to use tools they will be expected to use in the future in their work anyway to improve productivity. We would not want to, for instance, not allow students now to use word processors to spell check and or to learn how to use Microsoft Word or PowerPoint for presentations or Excel for accounting. The same thing is going to be true for AI. We just need to show them how to use it, right, ethically, responsibly, discussing the privacy concerns, and once again, discussing data mining. But this is still a tool they will be expected to use. And it should not be confined just to computer science classrooms as shown here. It can be very effective in the most creative of disciplines, whether that being writing poetry, creative short storytelling for fiction, and or digital art, drawing, all of the above. Machine learning can be integrated into the curriculum. Here are some references for further information. You can also contact me, and I'm happy to share our research and our data with you. And again, my name is Dr. James Hudson, and I hope you all have a great rest of your conference.